Hey guys, it's Vanessa. I just want to do a quick review about Punnett Squares, which hopefully you practiced a bit in middle school life science. But I do want to review it before we move on to some of our heavier, harder genetics material. A Punnett Square, just to review, it tells us the possible mixes of two parents' genes. So it can't predict exactly what the kids will look like or be like, but it can tell us, like we got a 25% chance of having a kid with red hair and a 75% chance of having a kid with brown hair or something like that. You could end up with 4 kids with red hair. So it's just probability. It's just telling us our chances, not what will absolutely be. And then something to remember is that everybody has 2 alleles for every trait. So for height, for being able to roll my tongue or having dimples or having freckles, for all those traits, I have an allele that I got from my mom and an allele that I got from my dad. So I have 2 for each. Now you'll remember sometimes one allele is dominant and one is recessive. So sometimes only one of those shows up in us, but we still have both of them in our DNA, in our genes. So each parent in this situation transfers one of their 2 alleles. They have 2, and we get one of them from each parent. So here's an example of using a Punnett square to kind of predict the offspring's characteristics. And we're going to talk about hair texture. So let's say curly hair is dominant, and we always represent dominant alleles with capital letters. So curly hair is capital H, and straight hair is going to be lowercase h. So we're going to take this combination of parents. The mom's genotypes, or actual alleles, are big H, little h. Even though she has one of each, one for curly hair and one for short hair, or for straight hair, the curly hair is dominant. So she actually has curly hair. This is her phenotype. She looks like somebody with curly hair. Now dad has the genotype little h, little h. And since this genotype is homozygous for straight hair, his phenotype is also straight hair. He doesn't have anything hidden in his genes, because the only way you can get straight hair is if you have both of these recessive alleles. Okay? So then the deal is mom has these 2 options. And she doesn't get to choose, but she can either pass a big H or a little h to her kids. Dad only has little h's, so that's the only thing he can give to his kids. Here's how we figure out the possible hair texture of their offspring. We put dad's alleles up here, so little h, little h. We put mom's alleles to the side, big H, little h. You can switch these around. This is just tradition. It doesn't matter where mom goes and where dad goes, okay? But this is how you set up a Punnett square. So for each of these 4 boxes that you have, you're going to bring down the letter on the top of the box, above it, and then you're going to bring over the letter to the left of the box. So here's what that looks like. For this first square, I'm going to bring down from above a little h, and I'm going to bring from the left a big H. Now, whether the big H or the little h goes first is not important. It's just tradition that we put the capital letter first. Okay? And then, so I travel over here, same thing. I have a little h above me, and I have a big H to the left of me. Then I go to the bottom boxes. I have a little h above me, and I have a little h to the left. Little h above me, little h to the left. So hopefully it makes sense. It's almost like a multiplication table where you bring something from the top and something from the side. Okay? So that leaves us with these boxes with the possible offspring's alleles. So here's what those letters mean in those boxes. Each of the 4 boxes represents a 25% chance of parents having offspring with those alleles. So each box counts for 25. 4 boxes times 25% is all 100%. Okay? So if we look at this combination, the offspring of theirs that got big H, little h are going to have curly hair. And the offspring of theirs that get little h are going to have straight hair. So these parents have a 50% chance of kids with curly hair and a 50% chance of kids with straight hair. Okay? So then let's talk about, both parents' genes or traits show up here. there's curly and straight haired kids. But sometimes traits disappear for a generation and then reappear later. So how does that happen? So let's take a different example where dad is homozygous dominant, big H, and mom is homozygous recessive, little h. So if we mix those in a Punnett square, we find that all of their offspring have the same genotype. They're all going to get a big H from dad, and they're all going to get a little h from mom. So every single one of their kids has to have, there's a 100% chance that they'll have curly hair. All right, but now if any one of these kids goes off and has a child of their own later, even though all of those kids have curly hair, they could pass their recessive gene on to their kids rather than their dominant curly hair allele. So let's say that one of those big H, little h kids has babies with a little h person. You look, and if you bring down all those big H's and little h's and finish the Punnett square, you notice that all those curly-haired babies can now have straight-haired babies if they're passing on this recessive allele. So those are just a few basics about how Punnett squares work. I'm going to give you guys some practice sheets for the next assignment. And then I'll also attach a second video with an adjunct professor explaining Punnett squares in case you didn't find this one helpful. But let me know if you have any questions, and have fun with Punnett squares.